Uh, Good evening. This is Amrish Sharma, and I'm going to give a small talk on design thinking and project management. So, before I start, I would like to give a brief intro of myself. So, as I said, my name is Amrish Sharma. Almost 35 years since I'm working in the industry. I have played multiple roles. Uh, Currently, I'm working as a professor of practice in one of the engineering college in Dehradun, where I've introduced three papers, two for BTech and one for MTech on AI. It was deep learning, large language models, and reinforcement learning. Prior to that, I worked with corporate, and my last role was senior corporate vice president in a US-based company, managing the application development and testing. Prior to that, I worked with Cognizant, TCS, IBM, and all across. I've done application development, managed complex project, was heading the complex delivery group in Cognizant. All in all, my main expertise is in managing large complex projects, and I've done training all along. From last 2 years, I've been teaching, but then prior to that, also as part of these companies, I've done uh, training on project management, planning, technology, so all these areas. So before I get into the actual topic, I would like to talk about uh, the need for design thinking. Why there is a need for having a different approach than the current approach, which is agile, using sprint, etc. Right? Why there was a need for something different. So in this slide, as you can see, I'm sharing the Standards Group Kiosk report. So just to give you a background, uh, the study group is a research company who are publishing these reports, the kiosk reports, from since 1995, right? And then what they're doing is they're talking to almost 1,000 companies, uh, spanning around 50,000 projects, right? And then collecting data around 125 parameters, and they kind of publish a comprehensive report about the state of application development projects, the reason for failure, success, etc., etc. So the last report they published was in 2020, and then the results are as follows: 31 projects were entirely successful; they were classified as successful. 15 of the projects end up exceeding the deadline and the budget, so they were schedule and budget, both overrun, and 19% were cancelled. So the point which I'm trying to emphasize is that the success ratio of the development project as per the 2020 report was just 31%. And in the same report, I like this, so I'm sharing with you. I know you all are project managers, so I thought you should also know this. They categorize it into four categories. The first one, the Wild West, which was the first stage, lasted from 1960 to 1980, where there was no process, there was no prescribed project management technique. The project were managed based on the experience of the project manager, and there was no formal methods as such. And the second stage, where I have done most of my project management, was from not most of it, quite of it actually, from 1980 to 2000. Waterfall, Winston Royce, he kind of formulated this technique way back in 1970, and a lot of project was done. There are a lot of pitfalls, but I'll not go into that area now. And then since 2000, the agile period started, which is still continuing. And the agile was, a sprint of 3 weeks at the most, right? And then trying to overcome all the possible issues which are there in the pure play waterfall, the iterations, the testing, and all those aspects were addressed. And the last stage they named is called infinite flow period. right? So I think there is where this is the time when there is the maximum need for having some innovation in the entire project management approach, and um, that's the reason why the industry is talking and adapting the design thinking approach. Uh, right. So before I move to the next slide, let me just throw some light on the complexity of the AI projects in particular. Right. See, the AI projects, all of you know, they are more of transformational project, right? And they in these projects, what we are trying to do, whether we are writing a autonomous agent, or we are trying to write a bot, right, intelligent assistant, the objective is to replace the human expertise or human involved in that area by machine. So it makes the entire process much more complex, right? Much more unique, if I can say so, right? And it makes the process or the project more wicked. And I like the word wicked because it has many paradigms, which includes, and I mentioned one of them, the uniqueness. So it's not one of its kind, but then you can't kind of copy things from something which is already existing. Most of these projects are new, and you're trying to do something which is unique, right? So keeping all this in mind, there is a dire need for having something which is very innovative, very different, and should improve the overall success in project management. So with this, I would like to start the definition phase of design thinking. So what I'm going to do in my talk is I'm going to cover the definition of design thinking, and then the 5 stages of design thinking, and maybe I'll spend some time on the empathize phase, which is the first phase of design thinking, and then I'll do the conclusion. Okay. And please feel free to ask me questions, because this has to be a interactive discussion. I want your participation. Otherwise, it will be more of a monologue. And the studies state that the participatory approach in learning increases the retention. And I know all of you are experienced project manager. Definitely, I'll have some learning from you as well. So, design thinking, is a process wherein the user is the center of the entire thing. The entire discussion, the entire approach is centered around the users. So whether their needs, their challenges, their pain points, right? All this is centric to design thinking. And if you ask me formally, basically the design thinking approach is very well suitable to tackle ill-defined, unknown problems, and I mentioned earlier also unique problems, which are one of its kind, right? And uh, to begin with, let's talk about the 5 phases of design thinking. The first is empathize, second is define, third is ideate, prototype, and then the final is test. And if you can see a similarity, it's pretty much similar to what we do in a sprint, right? You from inception to closure, right? So you can always correlate as a project manager that these phases are very much similar to what agile dictates, right? And let me tell you one thing more here. Design thinking is not a replacement for the known project management techniques like waterfall, agile, or prince2, any of these. It is more of augmenting the current approach to be more innovative, to solve the problem in a better manner, right? And as I said earlier, here the key thing is the human first and the foremost is the key. The approach is that we should keep the end user or the user as the center of all our decisions, right? So this slide is again very interesting slide, because here we talk about the end goal of design thinking, what exactly we want to achieve by having design thinking in our approach. So design thinking, there are three things. One is the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability. These solutions should be desirable, what the end user desires, what their emotions are, what their feelings are, right? And once we are able to identify what do people desire, the second is to find whether that is technically feasible, or and also whether it is feasible in terms of the constraint. Also the constraint, as you know, are the cost, the time, right? These are the key constraints apart from the scope and quality, right? So we have to ensure that the feasibility is from all these four perspectives. And finally, it should be viable financially. The end of the end objective of any business is to make profit, right? And if it is not profitable, if it is not viable, then it's of no value. But then the question could be, what if it's a non-profit organization? Still, it's the we can't quantify in terms of dollars, but then still it should be profitable in terms of impacting the lives of the people involved, creating the right value, etc., etc. So still viability is the key factor. So, I've already talked about the five stages: empathize, define, ideate, and then prototype and test, right? And one more thing is they are non-linear. The diagram which I'm showing is that these approaches are not the sequential, as I just said, and as they are in the sprint, they are not sequential at all. You can empathize, and you're writing the prototype, but at the time of writing the prototype, you realize that you may have to change the definition itself, right? So you may come back and do the emphasize phase to understand the needs again, create a new definition, and then move across the stages. I think this is pretty much what I want to highlight. Just one thing I want to highlight in this, which is very important, is, and which I've learned through my experience, that it's very important that we should, if we fail, we should fail fast, right? It shouldn't happen that failure is happening after 2 or 3 months, because then the amount of rework is massive and the probability to bail out the project is minimal. So this particular approach help us fail fast, and I can say it help us learn fast also, right? Any questions before I kind of move to the empathize phase? Any question from anyone? Okay. So now, if I talk about the empathize phase, as I said, there in this phase, we are trying to elicit the user needs, his emotions, his or her emotions, pain points, right? And we use various techniques like observe, engage, immerse, and finally, the objective is to do data collection, both qualitative and quantitative. You understand both the aspects. If anybody has any query, please ask me. And then you identify the feeling, the needs, the pain points, the problem area which the individuals are getting impacted with. And then I think one more very important aspect is that you have to drop your judgment, your assumptions, and your biases, right? Biases, there are many biases for a knowledge engineer also, and I have experienced the same in my life also when I was doing this role. And then there are various techniques. You can do the initial research, you can do interviewing, you can do surveys. The approach could be shadowing, especially in service industry. You can shadow the support personnel and identify what his needs are, what his pain points are. You can create a journal, you can note down, you can ask them to note down what the process they are going through, so that you can create a sketch diagram. And then the other part is the body language of the end user is critical. If they are very exhausted, tired, not interested, that also tells you a lot about the overall approach. I'll just give you one example of empathy. You will be wondering what it is, but this is just see, GE created the MRI machine for kids. And then what was realized with the normal machine, the 80% of the kids were sedated before they are put into the MRI machine because they are scared of noise, the entire environment, right? It was very scary for kids. And, when the designers spoke to the doctors, the parents, to kids, they realize that something needs to be changed. And it is not the technology, it's not the machine design per se, but the environment. And in this picture, you can this is called the adventure series of MRI machines from GE, which you can see that there are themes like the pirates, the jungle theme, and then similar themes are there. And based on this, they besides the user, they changed the definition and they created this prototype. The sedation rate were below 10% after this. And then there are cases where kids were keen to come back to this MRI machines. So this is what design thinking can do. So in conclusion, I can say that the most important takeaway is that this should be human-centered process. It should be for the end users, for their feelings, emotions. And I talked about it should be valuable from the sense of money. It should be useful. It should be desirable by the end users. And it minimizes the risk because you are testing early, and the testing feedback is taken all across the stages. So in nutshell, this is what I thought I'll cover in this class. Thank you for your attention. If you have any queries, please ask me. Thank you.